Hi, and welcome to the 72nd episode of Keen Minds. We're covering NBC's The Blacklist, Season 6, Episode 6, The Ethicist, and Episode 7, General Shiro. I'm Jen, aka Takata Saiko.
And I'm Tessa. And how did you like this?
I individually, I liked the episodes really well. I had some trouble with the logic switching over, between them.
Could you explain that?
Oh, wait, you want me to go into that?
Yeah.
I had some problem with the logic of how they got to General Shiro. And so I went back and I think I've seen episode 6 3 times now because I went back after getting back into town and everything. I was actually, for those that don't follow us on Facebook or Tumblr or anything, I was in New York, so Tessa and I did a quick little video, and it's up on Facebook and Tumblr, so we said hello. But, so I did a rewatch, so I was watching the episodes back to back, because I thought, I'm missing something. I'm missing a key component here. And, it was not quite as stark of an issue as I first thought it was, but there was still a lot of trouble because Red was talking to Atticus and he said, that he was looking for their mutual colleague or friend or whatever he was calling the guy. And he said that he would go to someone to handle an assassination quietly. And Atticus said General Shiro. Mm-hmm. And which makes sense. That's very much in line with how Red gets information. That flowed perfectly fine. As of episode 6, I had no problem with it. It was when I got to the end of the General Shiro episode. We had General Shiro, the guy that was going by General Shiro, was not in the criminal world. He was going, he was following his own code and trying to, give the bugs a fighting chance. It had nothing to do with other criminals or supply. I mean, apparently, according to Red, the guy that he's trying to get a hold of reached out to General Shiro to get some of his bug juice, but that's certainly not handling something quietly. And so that just didn't really match up. And then plus, because General Shiro really wouldn't be on anybody's radar particularly, how did Atticus, who's been drugged in a mental hospital for who knows how long, how would he know? Like, this is all fairly recently happening. I felt like there were several big holes there that it just kind of got convenient. It was interesting, but it just was a little convenient.
Well, maybe I'm reading things into, things that are not there. But to me was, Atticus hasn't been there for too long. He was just there awaiting trial. And because he was so violent, and I guess when they went to get his competency, he wanted to rip the doctor's tongue out. So therefore they got him drugged. So I don't think that he has been there that long. It was just long enough to, to have to try to rip somebody's tongue out.
And that's true, but that doesn't mean he would have any idea who this guy was.
Well, not necessarily, because I think about something. Most of these people who are doing an experiment, this guy was basically genetically modifying bugs in order to make them to survive and adapt. And in order to do that, he needed money. And obviously, he was working in a lab, earning whatever a researcher, doctor does, not enough to fund genetic sequencing material, changing, the bugs, maintaining all that, doing all that research. That lab of his must have cost a pretty penny. So I would not be surprised, not necessarily the bugs. The beetles would not be exactly a quiet assassination, but there would be many things that could be a quiet assassination. And put some ants that carry some poison or whatever, and somebody dies of a bee sting or something, just that the bee has been genetically modified to carry 15 times what the normal poison is.
And that may be what
and haven't been stung by one, I thought I was going to die. And, well, not by one, but about 100 hornets. Yeah, so I could see how that happened, and maybe they didn't quite did the editing in a way that seems like there were a couple of scenes that were missing,
Yeah.
like them saying, "Hey, you know what? We found the keys to a bunch of murders or whatever." But there was one guy that wanted a name, a number, an address, and that is that Michael Falkirk in England. And that's what Dembe goes to get. And says you need to unseal the crime scene, and he goes and he finds this address where General Shiro had sent something to this guy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like something got edited out, or, that maybe it wasn't the original script that was the issue, that it happened in the cutting room. But still, the end result of the episodes together left me feeling like they skipped over something. And so, I felt I've had a little bit of an issue this season so far. I mean, we're only 7 in, but I've had some issues with unclear writing. I felt like we discussed last time. No, I guess we haven't, because that would be this
No,
episode.
that's the Ethicist.
That's with Jennifer. Jennifer felt very, like they've been flip-flopping back and forth. That, originally we saw Jennifer as just this innocent person that didn't have a hand in anything, and she was, the only connection she, had to the criminal world was by accident through Ian Garvey. And Reddington, obviously. But, and so...
And then she was revenge is a bitch.
Yeah.
Especially when there's 2 of them, and then now she's like, I don't know, would you have done that?
Exactly.
I don't...
Well, it feels like it's flipping back and forth. And I also saw with... I still don't know if Glenn was trying to sabotage or help Red. And
he was so trying to help Red.
I didn't feel like it was clear. It goes back to, it wasn't very clear writing with that. And, I mean, he's always goofy. He's always like that. And
But there is a theory that he had that pug lady, and that pug lady was his person in there.
Oh, well, maybe that's it then. I don't know. And it may come out later that it's cleared up. But as of right now, between Jennifer, the General Shiro stuff, and Glenn, I'm sitting here kind of reeling, going, there are so many things that and I hope that they tie together. I think
you're also looking at things of a lot more critical, because you're doing screenwriting now, so I think that makes a big difference. But for the term of me, for example, I make the leap. This guy has to be a criminal. I mean, he's financing this. When I saw the lab, it's like, yeah, this guy is just that. This is not his only thing. There were all kind of bugs in there. There were just beetles. There were all kind of bugs. This was not this episode should have come with a warning for people who no, really, there is somebody in Reddit who asks, it's like, I saw this bugs, and he's like, can I watch the episode? And there's people who have phobias that are very, and insect phobia is a common one. It should have had a warning for insect phobia people. I mean, I don't like beetles. Of all the things, I really don't like beetles. And I could watch it because it's just that I don't like them. Not that I'm like phobic.
Yeah. I'm the same way. They are not, ugh. I mean, and
there's something about them.
Have them coming up your esophagus and choking on it. They definitely went for the shock factor on it.
Yeah,
and
it was great. I loved it.
They hit the shock factor with a swing out of the park there. So
yeah, I mean, I love this episode. Should we start by? I mean, Samar and Aram didn't really have much to do in this episode. There was that interrogation of the guy.
Yeah, and that's about all they had. Which that was another note that I have in here. We're hitting on all my notes within the first 10 minutes of the podcast. So back in season 4, it was season 4 because it was Liz was still Kirk still had Liz, Samar spoke fluent Spanish. What happened?
That is correct.
She spoke fluent
Yeah,
Spanish.
continuity problem.
So I'm just like,
That is
wait. I mean, like, it was adorable with Aram trying. And by the way, that's about how I speak Spanish. That's why I don't. Is because I sound like that. I don't want to butcher a pretty language. But like that was very Aram, just stumbling around it and trying to put people at ease. It was cute, but she speaks fluent Spanish. They didn't need, if they wanted.
You're right. You got that one right. I have forgotten all about that.
Yeah, like immediately.
She did an interrogation of the guy in good Spanish.
Yeah, down in Cuba. And so, yeah.
And instead they had this guy who by the name Schmuck was the name. Isn't that funny?
Well, I mean, he may just know Spanish as a second language. I mean...
No, but that's the name of the guy, Schmuck.
Oh. I thought you were saying because, like, he didn't
No.
Okay.
His name was Schmuck. The character, the restaurant owner.
Poor guy. He must have been mocked so much as a kid.
So, I found it a little... it was not much for them to do. There wasn't much to do for them in Klepper either. I mean, they were just looking for this guy.
I will say I was happy to see Aram out in the field because we know that he's been cleared to be... Which, by the way, in doing the research for my own story, I found out that they're really, like, if he shouldn't have just become, like, that kind of crossover doesn't happen in the actual FBI, from what I understand. Like, he wouldn't just not be field ready and then take a test to become field ready. Like,
no, I think he was trained to be a field ready. But
I don't think
he
that
would have to go through
way.
Quantico, basically.
Yeah, I don't think it would have happened that way. Like, it's fine. It's TV. There's a lot of leniency there, but
but there is agents that are not field agents.
Yeah, but they still go through Quantico. They do.
But not for field. Field, you would have to be training, driving training, weapons training, all that. He's a geek.
Yeah, I don't think it would have gone about that way, from what I understand. But that's just a funny thing.
It's stimulant.
I like having him out in the field. I think it opens up a lot of doors for him as a character, for Amir as an actor. It's awesome, and so I was really happy because he really hasn't been out in the field since he got his training for that. We haven't.
He was out in 102.
Yeah, but not to this extent. He wasn't interviewing people and carrying a gun, going in. No, that's not true. He did meet with the guy with the chip in his forehead. But anyway, I still liked seeing those two out in the field together. I was a fan of that. It was a nice little piece there.
Yeah. So should we move to Wrestler?
Yes. Yes. Sorry. I keep focusing on 607, and so much happened with Ress in 606 with him figuring out that Liz is hiding something from him. It was really, I adore Smart Ress, where he starts piecing things together and calls it out. And so I was very much a fan of him figuring that out and then trusting her, because she needs someone on her side right now. I
didn't even feel that he was trusting her as much as he just wasn't ready to confront her or anything. And he was just like,
he did confront her. He did.
Yeah, but confront her and he said, I can't tell you right now. I mean, it's been a very interesting thing going on for me, and I don't know if you remember when I started developing my rubber banding theory. Mm-hmm. I was starting to see things like this, and well, not exactly the same, but little things, and people would complain like, "Oh, Wrestler is just erratically drawn and all that," and I'm like, I don't think so. I actually think that there is a progression that is being planned and is careful. I see in the steps, and I'm beginning to see different steps in this occasion, and they're interesting steps. in season 5, I mean, Red had saved Wrestler from going into the dark once when he presented Tanita's head. And he took Tanita out and prevented Wrestler from becoming him, from going in a dark revenge in a moment where he was, totally engulfed by pain and where his moral compass wasn't really working so good. And he killed Tanita and presented the head. And Wrestler didn't say, "Oh my God, I got a head." He killed Tanita. He quietly accepted it, and
I still want to know where that head is.
Me too. Maybe lost it.
How do you store that or get
Maybe
rid of it?
Maybe he just put it around a bowling ball, and now he's bowling with it all the time.
Oh, why is that the go-to?
I don't know. It's fun. Imagine just throwing the ball and seeing it would be fun.
Okay. Anyway, have you ever seen those flower pots that are like skulls and then got flowers in the skull?
Oh, yeah. No.
that's where my brain
something
went.
Like that. It would be like, yeah, here you are. I'm throwing you out against stuff. But the thing is that in the dossier, Liz remarked that Wrestler, for some reason she didn't understand, seemed calmer. So it must have brought him a measure of peace to know that this guy had paid the price for killing Audrey. And in season 5, we had him killing Prescott. And granted, there is some very personal reasons for Red to do that. He needed Wrestler on the inside. He didn't want, Prescott has information on Red that he didn't want out. But it was mainly to save Wrestler. And Red did something. And Wrestler, thank him for, he didn't go home, but he didn't step into the darkness. And he wanted, and he was like, I didn't want you to kill Prescott. I wanted him to go to justice. And Red said that line, that the line through good and evil goes through the hearts of all of us. And I feel that what they're setting up a Wrestler is for having an arc where he feels compelled to himself to justify the moral turpitude that he feels he has now, that he's not anymore clear-cut, that he took a walk on the dark side, and he's always going to have a foot in there by saying, are we doing Red's bidding? Are we now doing that? Why are we never being told why we're doing this? And I find it an interesting arc, and I think I know where it's going. I think this is going towards he will have to either become who he says he is or accept who he had become. So it's going to be interesting. And by putting Liz in that category as well, like he's beginning to see Liz as the new Reddington.
That was a very interesting line about, that he just assumed that she was carrying his water, but he couldn't take couldn't have any communication there. And so it wasn't Reddington's blacklist, or it was hers. And we've seen that already with the Dr. Fulton. Liz had made the comment there. I mean, and we've seen it building towards this, that, you have the parallels between Red and Katarina dying and whatever that did with Red, and Red choosing to, regardless on biological or not biological child, Red choosing not to raise Liz. And right now Liz has lost Tom, and she's choosing to allow, Tom's mom to keep Agnes while she's dealing with this. She's building her own personal, group. She has Fulton on the back burner there. I'm kind of sorry that we haven't seen more of that, building more of that. But she's got Jennifer, who has her guy. And so, I mean, she's making these connections, and she's traveling down that path of becoming more like Reddington. And so Wrestler's statement is just another affirmation of that she is now given them a blacklister versus Red.
And it was for a very personal reason, and and it was a bad guy, and he chose not to tell to tell Cooper about it,
Mm-hmm.
which was an interesting choice. I
That
think
that's why I felt like that he chose, at least for the moment, to trust her, to give her the benefit of the doubt.
more the
And
benefit of the doubt than the trust issue. I would agree. If you put it in terms of to give her the benefit of the doubt, yes. To trust her, I don't think so. I think that Wrestler, for the longest time, he has, ever since, even when Liz faked her death and Wrestler was there, like, I understand why she did it. I think that he has come, like, to understand that, Liz is, according to what he believes, Reddington's daughter,
mm-hmm.
and very much like Reddington. And there's been that he hasn't been anymore towards Liz the way he used to be. They used to be more friends. They used to be more in touch with one another. I see Wrestler now making actually a very wall. I mean, when he was in trouble, he didn't trust any of them. He didn't
Yeah.
trust Cooper. He didn't trust Samar, nor Aram, nor Liz. Liz was in her own little world. There's been Wrestler is really in a completely different world than the rest of them. I mean, they're all. It's very funny because at this and season 3 and they were very much together. It was a great time because they were all in one thing, and even when they were chasing Liz, and then after Liz came back, and now it seems like there is, even though there is a romantic relationship going, that they're all going in different directions to me. Because even Ram was like, oh, I was just playing the sympathy card, and Aram and Samara is like, no. I don't know. It just feels to me that the task force is showing cracks.
Yeah. They're yeah. I would agree with that.
So, Cooper. Boy, did we have some interesting scenes with Cooper.
What about bringing the cigars to Red? That was such an interesting scene between the two of them, and to come all the way from Smells Like Hubris to where we are. And I've actually, I mean, as put out as I've been with Red for the last year or so, I still very much enjoy that bizarre little friendship that they have. And while Cooper does get very frustrated, I think more on the behalf of, what he feels is putting Liz into really bad situations.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's still a level of respect there for him with Red, and maybe admiration, maybe that's not the right word, but that he is well aware of what Red brings to the table and that they could not do it without him. I mean, he said as much, and I think that because of that, he's willing to say that the ends justify the means, and he's very willing to allow Reddington to be those means if it means saving multiple lives over the course of the years that they've worked with him.
I have a very different take on Cooper. I never saw that thing of hubris being a real thing. Much more, I'm always aware in the Blacklist of who is being watched. I don't know if you remember the beautiful Mustang commercials with Tom, and he says everybody's being watched all the time. So I've always been very careful, and not always. I've become very careful about making a distinction when I see a scene is who's watching. And whenever it happens in a public place, I'm always thinking this may be true, this may be not true. Maybe they're playing a role each with the situation. So to see what the real relationship between Cooper and Red is, I go to a few select episodes. The first is the judge. Red saves Cooper, and for that he's willing to get classified information, which basically adds to the crimes that he has done. And I mean, we're not talking about murders of not so innocent people. We're getting classified information, is basically espionage. Then we go, another of those episodes is when Cooper asks for, when they are in the thrushes, they Red has that compound where nobody can get in, and no, they have to leave their cell phones, they have to leave everything, there is nothing digital, there is no internet. And then they have a very interesting conversation. It's the two of them. Red is talking about how when he did this, he didn't imagine that it was going to get hotter and hotter every day, that he's suffocating Liz. They talk about why or not putting Kirk on the blacklist, and that is a very different tone conversation that we had before and after. So my thinking when I see those conversations and the difference is they're playing a role. And the role is, Cooper is going to be upset with Red, is going to be, so they're hiding the real relationship. And when Red is in Cooper's house, it looks pretty evident from the whole thing that Red knows Charlene and the kids, probably when the kids were kids, 20 some years ago. So it's not a stretch that Cooper may have met whoever you think Red's wife is.
Well, I mean, yeah, you said that he seemed to know Charlene. He made the comment when he went to go visit him in, I think that's the first episode in season 2. He says, give Charlene my love. So it's...
Yeah, and ask about the kids. How old are they now? The kids, not Charlene. There is a sense of, and he, advises him, like, forgive her. Don't. Red always knows what's going on. And then they had the conversation when Cooper comes to him to save his friend's son, and that again is a very different relationship than what we see in the post office. Red is interrogating this guy, going to inject him with fentanyl, and Cooper is like, yep, if you don't do this, you overdose. If you don't do that, you overdose. If you don't talk, you overdose. If the information you give us is not good, you overdose. And Red is like right there with that. Well, so it's a very different dynamic. So we come to this cigar scene, which I loved. I've watched that scene so many times, and I see so many things going on in there. He comes with a couple of cigars. Before it was Dembe coming with the champagne, he mentions Marvin Gerard sending him caviar in jail. One of those wildly, of all the things to send to a insect-ridden jail, like mosquito spray. I would have preferred mosquito spray to caviar, but I'm not Red. I mean, that would have said to me love. Apparently caviar means, and Cooper brings cigar, and they both sit on the same wall. They both are wearing maroon ties, same color shirt, and they sit. And this is two former naval officers sitting, and the way they should, it's very hard to know who's in jail. Because they put the scene from one side, from the other, you can't tell. And they smoking cigar, which is almost a celebratory thing. It's a moment between two friends. And I'm sure that there is conversations following this that we didn't see.
And I was going to say, he was there for a long while, because it takes a while for a cigar to smoke down. And yes. At the end, Red's was very short.
Yeah, and so I'm sure that we're going to see eventually whatever is that we didn't see in here. But that to me, I've always have suspected that Cooper was there for a reason, that even when Cooper was transferred as a former Golden Boy too, just like Red was, two former Navy Golden Boys, both of them, that I think that Cooper was placed there for assistance in this mission. And I think that Cooper knows who Red is. I think Cooper probably knows that Reddington is not his real name. I wouldn't be surprised if Cooper does know what his real name is. And Cooper always suspected that Liz was his daughter. He didn't have a confirmation. He always knew where to find DNA confirmation of Red being Red, and he doesn't seem to have. And this scene with Cooper seems to put um, all this impersonator to rest. There is no way that Cooper is mistaken. That is mistaking somebody who's known for so long.
No, and I mean, that's been one of the arguments for a while. That, I mean, because you have Cooper, potentially, and you have the guy that Red went to go see in, was that season 1?
Admiral Abrams.
Yeah. I mean, and so you have people that have known him for years that easily recognize him. And so, yeah, there's, it'll be interesting to see what they come out with at the end.
Yeah, and I've always, just as a disclaimer, I've always maintained he's an imposter in the sense that when they use it with Tom Keene, that's not his name. That's what imposter means. All impersonators are imposters, or not all imposters are impersonators. It's like all cats are mammals, but not all mammals are cats. So one is an encompassing category, like impersonator, whether imposter. So, should we talk about the blacklisters?
They were interesting. I mean, and we've been over a little bit of it, just in my comments about, you know, the shift into it and the holes that we found. But they were interesting.
What do you think about the ethicist? Wasn't he interesting?
He was spooky. It's, I mean, we've seen this in TV before. The general, you know, numbers are going to define if a person lives or dies, sort of thing. But I thought it was a very interesting spin on it. He was very, very calculated. And to the point that at the end, I mean, he was willing to go out of his way to save Liz's life because obviously she had a higher value than he did. Which was interesting. I think he was also just trying to stay out of jail as well. But I had an interesting thought there at the end. I mean, she sat there and handed this guy the gun, walked out. She had no idea he said he was going to blow his own brains out, but what if he had, just started shooting at her people when they showed up?
Yeah.
I mean,
it was a calculated risk. I think that she just read him and said this guy's going to kill himself.
Yeah.
And it could have been a risk, and it definitely would have, she would have all those people on her head had it been not, or shoot at her and kill her.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, she could have just put the gun on the table, and that way at least she would be safe. Or, at that moment, just call restaurant and say, hey, I got here, and I think the guy has a weapon to try to prevent, or at least wait until she hears a shot, which she didn't.
Yeah, I mean, but it was definitely an interesting blacklister there, and General Shiro bugs,
and also
bugs.
Kind of totally insane because there was nobody paying him. He looked at this guy who had killed this girl. And went and said, well, you kill her, but, she had more value than you, so let me just help you if you build a plant here. So I mean, it's not even, like, that's crazy.
Oh, yeah. He was definitely on the nutty scale.
Yeah. And how about General Shiro?
Another one that, I mean, like, honestly, as soon as we met him, I was like, oh, there's our bug dude. He's the one that's doing it. But it was a very interesting twist with the way they went about it. And I will forever now have it stuck in my head with bugs coming up the esophagus and out the mouth. I'm not a bug fan. Not
I love when they're doing the incision to help him breathe and the bugs come out. It was great.
Oh, see, you and I have very different versions of great. So
Oh,
it
it
was,
was creepily great. I mean, it was like somewhat revolting, but it was great.
yeah. I mean, it was definitely for the shock factor. It was for what they were aiming for. They hit it right on the nose for it. So kudos, guys. I'm just still a little squeamish.
Yeah, some people that were having wine were like, oh, and somebody read it was saying, so I sit there with my veggies and my stuff and I'm enjoying the crunch. And then it's like, ah,
Oh no, I had a glass of wine and I like was reaching for it as he dumps it in there. I went, "Oh, no, no, no. Horrible." Oh, it was
were you
yeah, it
able
was
to have your wine?
I was, yeah, because I knew that I opened that bottle and nobody touched it.
Good.
There were no bugs in my wine.
I would have been a little squeamish. I have a
Oh.
great imagination.
Oh, I do too, but I've managed to talk myself out of some out of those sorts of
Wasted
panics
wine.
before. Yeah, I don't like to
Mm,
waste wine.
yeah.
Uh, but
So, do you want to talk about Dembe and Glenn?
Dembe. So I had a lot of trouble with Glenn because Glenn is I've always been very fond of Glenn. I love the actor. I found him first on a show called Fringe several years back. And the actor's phenomenal. I love when they started getting rid of all of Red's crew and he was the one that stayed. I loved it. I mean, like, I miss Marvin. I miss a lot. I mean, I obviously miss Kate. But, you know, I was glad that at least we kept Glenn because he's always been so infuriating and fantastic at the same time. I don't blame Red for wanting to take his head off. And there's something very fun about someone that can push Raymond Reddington to snapping.
Oh
Red's
my God,
so
he's
cool under pressure, but the moment Glenn comes in, he has him twisted around and snapping and yelling, and I mean, Red has no control. And
I'm
so,
yanking your cheese. I'm pulling your leg. I'm like,
uh,
and he's always like eating. And when he had Dembe remember with the bowling, and he
uh,
had oh, it was just great. I mean, the dogs and the shrimp
he's
platter
just,
and the
I mean, but
retirement party.
yeah, I mean, so the fact that, and like I said earlier, I felt like it wasn't very clear on if he was really trying to help or not. Because it could have gone either way, because I don't think he was entirely joking with Dimbe when he said, let's just let him rot. Um, so I also want to know how he actually got put onto the list if he was a convicted felon. Like, how did he
Because
get
you
in the
see, he
room?
hacks the DMV. That's where the voters come. How the jury duty gets in
I
there.
guess so.
I think that he was trying to help, and then Red started getting very troubled and insulted him. And he was getting the worst out of Red. I mean, the guy. I think that Glenn is one of those. I think everything he said to the in the court was absolutely the truth. Nobody ever picks him. He has an annoying personality, so he doesn't try. So he was trying so hard to get picked. Like, I haven't heard anything about this trial. I don't know who Raymond Reddington is. I mean, he was trying generally to help, and Red starts pushing his buttons, and
They do it to each other. And it
and
just,
and Red is horrified that Glenn is there.
I mean, there aren't very many people that would make Raymond Reddington want a 15-minute break to gather himself.
Yeah, but we've seen the way he gets. Like, all you want to see is getting me lather up. You're pathological. And he has this like Kogamemi stories that there's like the legionary disease and this protocol and the other stuff, and it's always an
He's a
excuse.
pathological liar. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
he's horrible
he
about it.
knows exactly what to say. But I think that the same happened with Red. Red got so horrified that really hurt him. And it's like he had to get Red to say he was sorry.
Yeah.
you know. So I think that to me, but I do think that he got somebody on the jury, which is a pug lady, because
I
Red
could see
had
that.
the shop, and he always been very kind to dogs. So the fact that he was offensive to this pug lady, to me, tells me that he had a feeling that he was trying not to be too eager towards
Well,
her.
we also just spent a lot of time with her. I mean,
Yeah,
more time than the others. They were intercutting between the other people, but they really Red was focused on her, we were focused on her as an audience, and so she'll be coming back. And so
yeah,
that would make
and
sense.
she has the pugs. I mean, it's like, yeah, that's like, I'm a pug person,
I
like I'm a
love
dog person.
pugs.
Yeah,
Pugs are
but
sweet. They're
but
crazy,
then
but they're sweet.
yeah. Oh, I love all dogs, but then so I thought that having Glenn there was absolutely hilarious. He was even getting Dembe upset,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
It's well, I
that's
mean,
not.
I think Dembe was just so shocked that he made the comment about, you know,
He said the same thing to Red about Dembe. Remember when Dembe was on the run, he said, "Yeah, I never trusted that fellow with a fake
ah,
African accent." He says the same things. Like
yeah. That's true. I'd
he's
forgotten about that one, but
yeah,
you're
he's
right.
one of those people that just like whatever opportunity he has to push buttons, he does.
He opens his mouth and words come out and they are not thought through.
No,
It's
but
but
he's
yeah.
loyal.
Yeah, and in action most of the time. And that's why I would like to think that he was trying to help because otherwise,
Oh, I think he was trying to
I
help.
mean,
He's
he's been the one that's stuck around.
Well, Red is like, this guy doesn't do that, and he's the disagreeable personality. I mean, Red was like taking everything that he had bottled up inside. And it's funny because you remember, oh, I just realized that. Pug Lady with the flatulence of the pugs. You remember that scene with Glenn and they're eating sausages and he says, "We're going to have to sleep with the window open because I'm going to have another sausage."
Oh my gosh. Oh, Glenn. Oh,
Yeah.
Glenn.
So I do think that he was trying to. It was just hilarious. I love the actor. I think Clark Middleton is unbelievable.
He's wonderful. I love that man. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah, he's done very very well. And the character is certainly remarkable. Which takes us to, should we do Liz and I mean, because we had Jennifer and Klepper,
Mm-hmm.
and she was totally absent in this one.
Yeah. I think that Fiona has been filming something else as well.
Yeah,
That's
I think that she's actually on a series
mm-hmm.
that because these episodes were filmed in 2018.
Uh-huh.
This all
In 2008, really?
no 2018. It's been a hard day. 2018, and Fiona was filming a series in
I'm lucky.
2017.
I'm lucky if I don't call it 19 something still. So.
So let's talk about Jennifer. What a change she has had.
I don't know if there's I mean, you hope there's a reason to it that'll become more clear as we see, but it feels very much like flip-flopping back and forth. And I mean, I don't have a lot of confidence that I understand her character at this point.
Ah, because I think that, and I might be completely wrong. This is a theory I have. I don't. Uh, when I look at Jennifer Reddington, I always have to say to people, you have to look at the events from her point of view, not from the audience point of view, not from Liz's
Yeah.
point of view, from Jennifer point of view. And from Jennifer point of view, I am not sure at all that Jennifer doesn't believe that Red is her father. I think Jennifer was out for revenge. She was pissed because I mean she's grown up her entire life hearing, "We're hiding from your daddy. He's dangerous." In 2007, when she's finishing college or something, the mother said, yeah, he's so dangerous that I'm afraid he's going to get me and make me tell him, where are you? So you have to get away from me." So there she is, college, finished college. As she goes on, obviously, Garvey gives her another identity. Come back, it's 2017. Garvey moves her again because that identity, Lillian Roth, has no college. So this is an identity created way after she finished college. The second identity change, she had one identity change when she's 5 or 6 years old in 1990, from Jennifer Reddington to whatever. Then she has another identity in 2007 when she's still in college. So this identity has some college degree because she obviously graduated under whatever new identity she had. And then in 2017, she gets yet another identity. This one with no college, no traces, that's it, no history. She has no kids, she's never been married, she has no college education, nothing is found, and she's tending bar for 2 years. So it's 2018, and Frank finds her, tells her that her mother is dead, and that her mother met Red. So we have to think that for Jennifer, always afraid of her father, she was always reading about Raymond Reddington. In 2015, she reads that Raymond Reddington is helping this agent, Elizabeth Keene, escape, and they're on the run together. And then in 2018, Frank finds her and says, after she's been moved by Garvey one more time, and she's tending bar and serving warm beers and tuna melt, and with Garvey the only thing connecting her to any family, anything, she's lost everything. It tells her that actually her mom had met this guy and her father, and he actually cared for her and gave them a new identity. And in fact, if she inquired a little bit, Frank told her all about that goodbye because he wasn't happy about it at all. So, it wasn't like she was punching him. They share a hug and an intimate moment. So she knows that her thing about her mother being afraid of her dad, it's not true. It was a lie. She's been lied her entire life. And then in 2019, she finds out that there's a bag of bones and supposedly her father. I don't think she thinks that is not true, because she knows, well, then either my mother lied to me, or my mother, no, this is my father and my mother, and we've been hiding for a long time, and either way, they're being lying to me. And now it turns out that Elizabeth Keene tells her, yeah, but I'm also Reddington's daughter. So not only my father abandoned us, my mother lied to me, but my daddy spends time with my sister. So, it's like this guy deserves everything bad that happened to him. So I think that when we meet Jennifer and she's like revenge a bitch, and she's all for like, let's put him in jail, I think she's mad as hell. She just wants to punish daddy because daddy abandoned her. Daddy has been lying to her. Mom has been lying to her. And besides, he seems to prefer the sister. And it's at the moment when she sees, she already had seen Liz put a gun at Reddington because she wants some truth. Now it's even going further. Now Liz is like letting this guy kill himself. She's like, there's like no morals left to her. I think that Jennifer got, this is a sobering moment for her.
You think she got spooked?
Yes, I think that it was a fun revenge for her. So I'm going to teach daddy what he feels like for lying to me. And now he's in jail. And she hasn't even contemplated death penalty, but she's seeing what he did to Liz, and she's seeing herself in that mirror.
I could see that.
But it's until you see it from her point of view that the character makes sense. Because from the point of view of the audience, it's a flip-flop. From the point of view of the character, it's an evolution of what, maybe whatever pissed I am, it's not worth my soul.
Yeah, and it's also affecting people other than just Red at this point. And so, Red's in, even if Red were to, be executed, it's still just him. This was somebody else, not an innocent person, but someone that should have gone to jail, not blown his own brains out.
And it's I think it's more Liz. I mean, the fact that Liz was willing to make this things. It's the same horror expressed by Russell when you say the Liz that I met or he thought he had met would never have contemplated trade-ins or whatever. And at this point he had, and I think that Jennifer is a character that is actually seeing this and thinking, I can be there, and you know that she will be there.
Yeah, that if she sticks with it long enough.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with Liz and Red.
That leaves us with Liz and Red in a very interesting conversation Liz had with Dembe.
So we now know that Dembe knew Katerina.
Yep, and which means Katerina is not dead.
Now, I agree with that, but how are you making that jump specifically?
Because Katerina supposedly committed suicide in 1990, as we have been told repeatedly, and Red rescued Dembe in 1993.
So, yeah, you're right.
So unless he had a Ouija board.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's what timelines are important.
Yeah, I haven't run the timeline in a while, so that would...
Yep. So that means that positively Katerina is not dead, which is actually Red has never, whenever Red says that her mother died, is Katerina Rostova. The use of the entire name means is the identity.
I think he told her that her mother was dead once. It was at the wedding whenever...
And your father is dead. The figurative death of the role of the parent.
Yeah.
And whenever he says Katerina disappeared, it's Katerina. Katerina disappeared. Whenever he says Katerina Rostova committed suicide, that's the identity. It's like somebody saying Christopher Meinham was a Nazi guy. You know, he wasn't. And let's say that he had, fake a death by blowing his brain. So he blew his brain out, but you use the entire name, and that's the identity. Because it's especially tricky if the person's first name is the identity first name. Yeah. It creates an even more level of confusion. It's fascinating what the Blacklist does in order to confuse the audience. And the people get so confused. It takes so much dedication to unconfuse oneself.
Yeah, I mean, and here's hoping that at the end it'll unravel and we'll make
they're talking about getting another season, so I'm not hopeful that we will get many answers this one then.
Yeah, which is a shame of not that people won't have a job or anything. I mean, like, obviously that's always a good thing. I was hoping for more answers. Like I would say have it go forever and a day if we were still getting answers, we were still moving. I just feel like this has been stretched so thin. It's been stretched so thin. And I very much enjoyed the individual episodes this season. The episodes themselves have been great. They just feel like they're
it makes it look like the Bone arc like fast in comparison to how many.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had last year we had Dom. This year we had Jennifer, and we still know very little. So we keep meeting characters from the past.
Oh, we met Dom in season 3. No, season 3. Yeah.
And he was back in season 4 and back in season 5, and we still don't really know much about anybody. So let's go into Liz and Red. I tell you, I don't know, and nobody will convince me until I actually see it on screen that he's not her father. They're so similar, it's ridiculous.
Oh, there's the direction on it is definitely to show that she is quite a bit like him.
Mm-hmm. And deceitful like her mother.
I just want to see Kat. I want to see Katerina Rostova show up, and that's
just Katerina. She will not be Rostova anymore. That was just an identity.
Yeah. But, I mean, you know what I mean. The character.
Yeah, Katerina. That's why they put the name as a person, as the name of an entity. Confuse people even further. I found fascinating to watch Liz because she's a little conflicted, but know that she hasn't really even like said, "Oh my God, Jennifer, do you realize this is the death penalty?" She's like, "No, no, no, we gotta keep going. We gotta find this name." And last week it seemed like it was Jennifer saying, finding each other doesn't matter. In the Ethicist, what we need is answers. And Liz was like, well, but at least we found one another. Now it's like Liz was like, no, 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 we need the answers.
Well, I think when the answers are dangled in front of her, she gets very zeroed in on it, very focused, and so she's after it, like a hound, tracking it down. And I mean, to be fair, at this point, even if she were to stop her investigation, that'd do absolutely nothing to save Red. I mean, her investigating who he is, I mean, at best, if he were to die, at best, the investigation would allow her to know, if it was worth it or not. At worst, she hits a dead end, never can get around it, and,
then at least I can totally see her going.
It's already been put into motion, is what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I could totally see her going to him and saying, hey, I know that you're on the death row and you're going to die like tomorrow. So why don't you tell me now the truth? Tell me who you really are, because I know you're not Raymond Reddington.
Yeah.
What did you make of that scene where when he was saying, why are you giving it this case? And he says, have I ever told you that you remind me of your mother?
Total redirect. I mean, Red's done that for 6 seasons now. He didn't want to have that discussion with her, and so he picked the thing that he felt like was going to actually distract her. And I loved that comment of, there are a lot of things you haven't told me.
Boy, you're very, very dark on Red. I think that might be one of the reasons, but there is something else that reminded me, was Liz pressing him to tell him the truth, to trust her. And I wonder if Katerina had done things to not earn his trust, because I think that there is a lot of things, and that is what reminded him of her.
Do you think it's possible that Red's toying with the idea that Liz may have set him up? Do you think that's even really on his radar?
I think it is, because the options are very limited. I think that he might even know at this point, because they're so very. I mean, it was not Cooper. So, and the thing is, he still got the task force to think it might have been that. But the only people who knew where he was Dembe and Liz. I mean, he could have been followed. Phone could have been tracked, because Aram could have done that. Aram has always been the most steadfast supporter Red had in the task force, because even Samar had gone a little off Red, it seemed. But I think that Red just can't entertain it very.
He doesn't want it to be true.
Yeah, I think that he's not seeing it. He doesn't want to see it. I think Dembe does exactly know who he was.
Oh, you think he did?
Because he had told her, like, you know that he always carried a gun. He told her a few episodes ago. So I think that Dembe knows, and Dembe is, he told Red, and it's funny because the arc of this season was foreshadow in when Tom told Red secrets put people in harm's way. So now we got Red on death row because secrets put people in harm's way, and family secrets always come out.
Yep. Should have listened to Tom.
Well, it's worthwhile, but it's interesting episodes. And we did get one very important piece of information for the in terms of mythology, which is that Dembe knew Katerina, which means absolutely Katerina did not commit suicide. Katerina Rostova committed suicide, but not Katerina. The questions now are, let's talk about that fantastic scene with a psychiatrist.
Oh,
I want to thank anybody who listens to us that is from the show. Thank you for giving us Red being analyzed, because those scenes were absolutely priceless. They were awesome. The test, they all look like genitalia to me. And then that doctor got Red down to a T.
yeah. I mean, she had very little time with him, in the grand scheme of things, and she had him pegged.
Yeah, and what I find the most fascinating part of that is that people hear what she said and they hear confirmation of the imposter, or he's not who his name was. That's not what she was saying.
She was basically saying that he wears a mask for the world to see. I mean, that was the gist of what she was saying.
And the mask is the criminal.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's...
Yeah, but that's not the way most people will see that. They will say, oh, see, he's an imposter. No, he's an imposter. Everything about him is a lie, means he's not really a criminal, although he had to become a criminal in order to bring it forward, because that's how you do. Remember when he described Tom to Wrestler, what Tom was like because I don't think Wrestler understood until then that Tom was not really a school teacher. He says he's an undercover op. And once he goes into a role, he believes it himself. He said we share characteristic. He was telling Wrestler who he is. And I think that he has been the criminal for so long, he started to think he is, and that's causing that split. So I thought it was phenomenal. And Red's face was bug. Sting bug.
General Shiro's after Tessa.
Yeah, there you go. It's a proper episode for this. Make sure they're dead. Yeah, especially after General Shiro, I'm not going to do the podcast with a bug around the room.
Ugh. Bugs. I don't handle bugs well. Not a bug fan.
Did you love the scene with Atticus and the nod to Kill a Mockingbird?
I loved Atticus. Oh my gosh.
What is about ripping tongues out? There's been the tongue of Jasper. I'm gonna cut your tongue with a butter knife. That Red was.
I don't know, but that was apparently what he wanted to do, and he was very fixated on it.
Yeah, and I believe quite capable of it too.
Oh, I think so. It was interesting, though, because the doctor said that the fact that Red stopped Atticus proved that he could tell right from wrong. And I was with Red on that. I disagreed with that because it showed his moral code, which doesn't necessarily, just because at that moment his moral code and society's moral codes coincided, doesn't mean that's always the case. And which was the point he was making to her at the beginning. That, he doesn't understand why, okay, so maybe he's killed people, but so do other things, that nobody seems to have an issue with. And so I kind of felt like that, legally standing, yeah, I get it. But, it was interesting because I felt like it actually, from in the scene, proved Red's point.
But it was interesting because I got the feeling when they stopped that scene with the psychiatrist said, I had one last question. What did you want it from your friend, from Roderick? And Red smiled, and I have a feeling that this character might come back. Because what Red is doing is trying to stop an assassination by the Corsican, who has employed methods more or less traditional than his, whatever. And he said, well, this whole season started once Red goes in jail. He gives Liz Dr. Kohler. And the idea is that it's really about Dr. Kohler, but that's not what he wanted. He wanted to stop the Corsican. He tells Shiro,
What? Why do
that
you think? Why do you think it's the Corsican?
Oh, okay. All right. So when Red tells Atticus that I have to go backwards, okay? Red tells Atticus that he's there to find out who his friend, Atticus' friend or their friend, who will they contact in order to perform the next job, which is an assassination. That's what he is, because the FBI is looking for him. The only character that has escaped this season that the FBI is still looking for him is a Corsican. He's an assassin. So Red went to see Atticus in order to find out who will the Corsican basically outsource the assassination or find a means to get the assassination. That's why, and he's going to General Shiro, and he goes to General Shiro in order to get the name that Dembe gets, which is Michael Falkirk. Very interesting name, same root as Kirk and Kershaw, meaning church. So that is the means to stop an assassination that the Corsican is going to do. And he told Liz that he needed to get to Missouri in order to work on an immunity agreement. So it means that the assassination he's trying to stop is the person who's going to work on him for him to give him an immunity agreement. And the only person who could give him an immunity agreement is somebody high up in the government. So I'm thinking is President Diaz. And that's where his immunity, or somebody high up in the military that knows that he wasn't guilty of that treason, or that he can give me an immunity agreement. And he was looking for the pharmacist in order to have a favor to trade, but he can't have the favor to trade if the person he's trading it with for saving somebody's life is dead.
Right.
So
okay.
This is very much like season 1, in which Red is looking one to get the other to get the other. So he's basically still looking to do the same things that he has done from the first moment, which means to me that Red was always thinking about getting that immunity agreement or getting himself pardoned. Because I think that the mission is ending, he's seeing the end. And he needs that immunity, especially if it's a covert and he's on his own. So if he gets caught, he gets caught. The government has deniability.
What was one of the names that they used back with? I'm blanking on his name. Oh gosh, it was from season 4. Milo something or another. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about though. But he had
Miles McGrath.
That's it. But he had all the names that he was referring to. And one of them was
cold.
The stayed out in the cold too long.
In the cold. Yeah, those are very opposite. One is a spy that wasn't a spy, and the other one was a spy that was a spy and was never caught as a spy. And then there's, it's. I think we're getting there. I find interesting that this is going to take us to England, because one of the cars that we saw in one of the previews, I think Ali had it in her website, was a British car, which is a red hatchback driven on the right.
On the right or on the left?
On the right. So that was England.
They were drive on the right. They drive on the left there.
No, the wheel on the right.
Oh, the wheel on the right. Sorry, I thought you meant the side of the road.
No, the wheel on the right.
I was like, I don't know what side of the road you drive on, but I drive on the right side.
You saw me driving on the right side, but with the wheel on the left side.
Oh. Well, I think that's about it, isn't it? Do you have anything else for either of them?
No, there's been a lot of themes that I think we can analyze in maybe another one maybe one of those weeks we have a break. Next week it will be a double too. There's a lot of the themes like plaid everywhere. By the way, what do you think about that prosecutor? Actor is doing a phenomenal job.
See, I'm thinking the judge. The
No, the
prosecutor,
judge is quite a different story.
honestly, the prosecutor, I kind of want to punch him in the face most days.
Yeah,
Like, he's just kind of obnoxious. And,
very.
like, I mean, so there we go. I'm on Red's side with something.
But the judge was actually like flirting with Red, and Red is talking about sexual fantasies better discussed in chambers, and there he goes and put his foot on the mouth by saying things about Schumann, and it turns out the judge is a Schumann fan.
Played at her mother's funeral. Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So Red couldn't have put the foot further into his mouth.
Up to his kneecap on that one.
Remember that he said sometimes his temper gets the worst of them, and then he says things he shouldn't said, and that's how he got, because the officer. So it's been very entertaining, read in court. I'm not sure that this should be going too much longer. I'm hoping that this will be wrapped.
It was one of those things that, like, it was a nice nod to the whole Alan Shore thing, but it's kind of gone on too long. It goes back to feeling very stretched.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to the actual trial, because I think we might get some information in there, especially because if Red maintains that he is innocent of the treason to selling documents to Russia, that's a one thing I wanted. Did we discuss this in the previous one? No, the documents to Russia. And that's not what we've been told. We've been told he sold documents to Islamabad, not Russia. And this is the second thing that Red has been accused of. That is not what we've been told. He also said he didn't give Sutton Ross the plans for the Grayscape. So somebody was using his name for some other things. And I think the treason to Russia definitely falls in there. So that was it. That's all I got.
All right. Well, you can catch us on Tumblr, on Twitter, and on Facebook, and you can listen to us on YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud. We plan to be back next week for the double episode.
Yep. See you then.
All right. Bye-bye.